I was planning director in the city of Emeryville, the school district and the city didn't get along so well. There was a lot of tension. And so the progress that they've made, and I think it's been about 8 or 10 years, is pretty phenomenal. So in my conversation with Frank, and Frank and I go way back because when I was the planning director in Emeryville, he did a large project there. So we go way back. I called him and I said, well, you do a lot of other joint work with cities and school districts, and this is all a new area for me. I don't know much about this. And he had a long portfolio of the things that they've worked. He introduced us to Dara Youngdale, who is with another firm that they collaborated with the Emeryville project. And of course, Mark Schatz I knew from before. And Mr. Evans is new to the team for me, but we'll be introducing him as we get to that point. Frank Bullard, Field Paoli.
Thank you, Gay. So, thank you. I just want to, I'm just going to make a few introductory remarks. Who we have with us is Mark Schatz, my partner, one of 6 partners in Field Paoli, Dara Youngdale, principal with HKIT, and Jeff Evans, also with HKIT, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the Center for Cities and Schools. But first, I'm just going to take you through very quickly 3 examples, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Debbie? So, we do a lot of work with different cities on both the city side and with redevelopment, like you've heard about. San Leandro's definitely doing it. In this case, this is a school called Ponderosa Elementary in Anaheim, where they combine in the Parks District, the library system, and the school. So that corner building right in the foreground is actually a neighborhood branch library, along with a new 2-story elementary school. And the parks are, you can see in the distance there, it's part of the Park District, and some of it's used for playgrounds for the school. Next. Here, this is one that's just phenomenal. I visited this a couple weeks ago in Washington, D.C. It's called the Ark. The president spoke there, Colin Powell has spoken there. But look at the different groups that are part of this project. It was quite amazing. I was there with the Urban Land Institute, and we got to see the fact that there's a ballet school, a music school, a girls' school, Boys and Girls Club with double gym. Unbelievable combination of things to make this happen. Next. And finally, I just wanted to point out that this, in Boston, the Burke High School, was something which was part of, they called it the Community Learning Initiative in Boston, which once again was the Parks District, the high school, and the library getting together to combine all their facilities in a new facility attached to an older school which they renovated. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and we'll start off on our storytelling.
Thanks so much. I think I'm going to stand back at the podium. It's just more comfortable. So, next slide, please. The idea of a shared campus, of different organizations coming together with very different agendae, but finding a common goal, isn't new. The Emeryville Center of Community Life, which, as Gay mentioned, was a dream that began around 8 years ago at an inopportune time when the Emeryville School District, or the Emory United School District, was bankrupt. And the city came to their rescue, helped them with some funding to keep on their feet, to remain as an independent school district, but one with lots of unique challenges. 800 students, that's a very small district. One of the things they've done is they consolidated. They have one school that's K through 6, they have another school that's 7 through 12. The third school they've leased out to the city of Piedmont for a couple of years, which helps them have the financing to keep their district going. Next slide, please. This map shows you the 3 schools. They had a very insightful interim superintendent who came up with this idea of what if we all work together for the betterment of everyone who lives in the community, and did a joint use project that would become the heart of the community. Emeryville's 1 square mile, but most of that's business. There aren't that many people that live there. And in their school district, most of the students, especially in grades 7 through 12, aren't from Emeryville. So there are a lot of tensions that come up when you go and present this type of elaborate project to the community. A lot of people resent it. Why should we spend our money for the kids from Oakland? But there are more people that come in and say, we see the benefit that this will have, not just for us, not just for our kids, but for bringing people to Emeryville and helping us grow as a community that has a heart. So originally they were looking at the, originally they were looking at the bus yard, which is just below Emeryville Secondary School, and they couldn't get it. Then they were looking at the site where PG&E is, and we came in and suggested, why don't we look at the site of the Emory Secondary School? The district already owns the land. You have a surplus school up at the middle school where we can house the kids temporarily during construction. Why don't we use the site of Emory Secondary School as the site of the Center of Community Life? And everybody loved the idea, and it's moving forward with that. Next, please. They came to us with a vision. There was one more little ball on the bottom when we started, which was public safety, but they had some real opposition to the idea of locating the police at the same campus. But the idea was to bring the community in and to best serve all the needs for social services, community services, recreation, education on this one site. And it came into three main components, which is education, recreation, and cultural, as I would say, social and cultural. Next, please. That, through a lot of hard work, primarily through Dara, translated into a program where we actually developed a list of the spaces that we would need in all of the various components. And we decided, it's on a very urban site on San Pablo Avenue, we decided there should be an internal space that would become the focal point, this commons that everything in turn opened off of. But we don't want to turn our back to the street too, because we want to, through this project, help the redevelopment of San Pablo into an active, vibrant urban street. One of the amazingly complex things was who uses what when, and Dara's going to talk about that.
I think you pointed this out earlier when you talked about the complexity of sharing space, and it's like teenagers. It's, I don't want to share, but there is a very strong will to share, and what we wanted to do was really decide how to make that work, and how to make that work 24/7, because it's not only about sharing, it's about maximizing the utilization of any space that we're putting money into. So what we did with the team was we created something you can't read, but I can with reading glasses, and that is a series of utilization time zones. So it wasn't just about who gets to use the space during the school day, it's who uses the space between 8 and 3, who uses the space before school, after school, evenings, and then weekends and summers. So we charted and mapped all of this out, color-coded in terms of who gets first priority. So it's a system of prioritization. Schools get first priority during a certain time, the community gets it at another time, or maybe it's an open system where both get it first come, first serve. But this sort of started to calm things down to make it look like it was a workable system. The other thing in programming that I think was very important was making sure there was ample space. Even though we're looking at shared facilities, for example, classrooms that could be shared by many users, there needs to be lockable storage. It's just that simple. You have to have allocated space where a teacher can store their belongings or a community member can come in and store belongings. We also wanted to create very friendly volunteer spaces. Emeryville's unique, I think, in that there are about 8,000 residents, but there are 30,000 workers. And so the workforce during the day is a big change, and we're looking to have volunteers come in. So creating neighborhood classroom centers where volunteers could come in and feel welcome. And then other pieces were professional development areas and a very strong desire to engage the arts community, such as Pixar and other people that are located there. So building and planning for facilities that would be inviting for the business community.
Great, next one, please. So for us, the fun isn't just thinking of what's going to happen there and how it's all going to relate to each other. It's coming up with physically what does it take to make this happen? How can you, on a limited site, with some existing buildings that we decided we should probably keep for budget purposes, how can we make this all happen? We developed a 3-story scheme where there's overlap, and there are shared spaces at the core of it, the sort of community rooms with the kitchen that are the lunch rooms. We had to have separate lunch rooms for the younger kids and the older kids, and a lot of separate circulation paths during the day to keep the high schoolers away from the kindergartners. But then in the afternoon, everything opens up. Those lunch rooms become the rooms that people rent out for events like this. They become the places people rent for weddings, where movies show, where plays go on. So that's at the center. Our administrative and community services, which is social work, medical care, all of those things are in the front. The younger grades are to the right, the older grades to the left, and the recreation on the whole back half. So it's a really exciting construct, and very complicated, three-dimensional. We built great big models to walk people through to show it. And then we took the show on the road. We basically went out, I think there were 15 meetings in 1 month, where we went and talked to different people, and we went to them. We went to the fire station. We went to the PTA meeting at the elementary school. Dara and I met with each grade at a time. And we watched as the 9th grade girls all painted their nails while we were trying to talk to them. But we focused on showing them examples of what it could be. What kind of spaces is it going to take to promote the innovative programs of teaching and education that they wanted to have in all grades? What are the types of spaces they need for the community programs? And sometimes we showed examples from our work, like Union City Sports Center or Mill Valley Community Center. Sometimes we showed pictures of their kids so that they would relate to it, so that people would understand we're not talking in the abstract. We're talking about you and your families. Next, please. We looked at what are the outdoor uses we want to get on the site, because even though there's 200-some thousand square feet of building there, we're trying to preserve as much of the space as open space as possible. And Emeryville does have an active community. This picture on the bottom right is Martin Luther King Day at their elementary school. And we set up a room there and did an ongoing show all afternoon educating people about this project till we got to eat too. And this is what it all looks like in the dream. Who knows what it'll really look like when it's built. But to their amazing credit, they passed the bond measure to make this happen. The city's going to contribute $25 million. The school district is contributing the land, which is worth about an equivalent amount, and the taxpayers just voted in, I don't know the exact amount, but it was quite a number of millions of dollars, and they're going to approach local businesses, because there are some very successful businesses like Chiron, which is now Novartis, and Pixar, and they're going to get them to be partners in this, and this project is going to happen. And that's what it's about. Building the groundswell of support, building the energy, building the enthusiasm, opening your mind to new ways of thinking about things. As everybody said, forgetting those shut doors and, this is mine hats. Looking at how can we together make things better so that we're going to have a future. So now I'm going to hand it back to Dara to talk about some of their other projects.
Measurable differences when classrooms are day lit, when they're naturally ventilated, when the indoor air quality is outstanding, and that is something we strive to do, and I know something that your community is striving to do. Another thing that we found very, very important is to design very durable buildings, because bond money often just pays for the construction, and it doesn't cover the cost of long-term maintenance, so we're very aware of that. Like on the Emeryville project, we do design spaces and buildings and outdoor areas that are usable year-round. Nothing better than to use space to its maximum potential. And of course, we're ever mindful of energy efficiency. I thought you might be interested in the project in the lower corner, which is for the Hayward Unified School District. We're working with them. This is the Fairview Elementary and Dave Gallagher. There's currently a power purchase agreement with Chevron to put in solar panels. And we're working with a number of districts. Some are able, through bonds, to support actual purchase of the materials themselves, but in this case, it is a power purchase agreement. Next slide. Just a few examples of some joint use. This is kind of an unusual one, I think. It is in San Mateo, the Bayside Performing Arts Center that was completed a few years back. But what's interesting, I think, is it is a joint use shared project, but it was put on a middle school campus. Very unusual to have this sort of space. But it is truly a teaching and learning environment. It is designed so it's useful to the entire district as well as the community. One thing I think of note is that one of the goals of the board was that this theater shall, end quote, be self-supporting, covering operations, administrative, and depreciation costs. So I think that's a great, worthwhile goal.